Hey guys, I'm Joe Berry, data scientist at Edited.
And I'm Kayla, Marci, market analyst at Edited. Joe, I haven't seen you in a while. How's quarantine going?
Yeah, it's going well. Obviously, I'm in the epicenter in New York, so it's a bit intense here right now, but thankfully I'm doing okay. How's it going? Very far away in Australia.
Yeah, not too bad. I'm currently in Melbourne. Couldn't make it back to London, but I think that's a bit of a blessing. So I'm not quarantined with my three flatmates in a tiny apartment. Though that's a bit first world problems. Obviously, the retail industry has a lot more going on. Everything is a bit intense at the moment, so we thought it would be a great time to reveal what we're working on, what you've put together, the Edited COVID-19 Retail Analyst Tracker.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful. The COVID-19 Retail Analytics Dashboard, but
That's the
yeah,
one.
so we've been working on this for the past few days. It's just a really simple top-level dashboard of a few of the key metrics in the retail industry for a few different regions, so UK, China, US, and a few others. So we built this using our Edited API, which accesses the same kind of data that we have in our app, which is about 650 million products, over 2,000 retailers. So it's been really quite an intense project, but a very relevant project. I'm quite excited to show it today.
Yeah, so cool. And it is going to be so helpful. Of course, the retail industry is going through huge changes now, and it will continue in the future. And since Edited houses the world's largest source of retail data, we're offering a free and public resource into some global insights that might help influence some pivotal decisions. So if you want to bring up a demo of the dashboard, we can pull out some of the juicy insights that we've found.
Like I said, we looked at a few key regions. You can see these here: Australia, China, Germany, Italy, South Korea, Spain, UK, and the US. Obviously, there's many more regions, and we might add some over time as things go on, but we started with these. So in honor of yourself being down under, let's go look at Australia.
Yeah, what's going on?
So I'm not going to try to do my horrific Australian accent.
Please don't.
We have a few metrics, like I said. So the first one up in this top left corner is new arrivals. So this is new products entering the market. And for all of this analysis, we wanted to see how the market is behaving year on year. We like to think of 2019 was a normal year. I mean, it definitely wasn't. There's a lot of weird things going on, but compared to 2020, it was absolutely bog standard. So it's really interesting to see how 2020 is reacting differently to 2019 from the beginning of the year, January, up until today. So yeah, every graph has these two lines. The orange line is this year, and the blue line is last year, 2019. And as we hover over, we can see the absolute numbers of new arrivals entering the market in Australia and the percentage difference. So we can see, for example, actually from January up until around the middle of beginning of March, Australia had more new in products coming in this year compared to last year, but then we started to see a dip, and Australia had 1,000 cases of corona confirmed in the middle of March. So we added these markers to all of our graphs to give some context for the different regions as to when they started to enter into their sort of COVID pandemic, because each country obviously, as you know, got hit at a different time. So Australia,
as usual, is behind the rest of the world with everything, including COVID.
It's good in this sense. So, and then we can easily see that, we're seeing a 20% drop in new arrivals year on year as we go into March for Australia. The second graph I wanted to bring your attention to is the average product discount. So this is across the entire region of Australia, what's the average discount for a product? And what's interesting here is actually it seems pretty flat, even compared to year on year. There's some small differences, 10 to 15% at times, but for the most part, this hasn't changed that much, whether it was last year or this year. Assortment on discount has changed a bit more, and this is the number of products in your assortment that's actually on discount, so the proportion of discounted products for a region. And this has actually begun to diverge a bit in Australia as COVID's taken hold. We're seeing about a 25 to 35% increase in the amount of products on discount, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
And then so if you just want even a quicker snapshot of these metrics, we have these 3 panels. So this is just to give someone a real quick insight into so what's happening in Australia today. So today we're seeing a 10% reduction in new in products. We're seeing a 7% reduction in the average product discount, and a 25% increase in the proportion of products on discount, which is really interesting. And then the last kind of metric we wanted to explore is categories with the most sellouts year on year. So this week, which categories are we seeing with the highest portion percentage increase in sellouts compared to 2019? And it's worth mentioning here, like I said, this dashboard is powered by the edited API, which uses online data only. So we will crawl retailer websites and grab information that's publicly available. This doesn't include brick and mortar sales or point of POS sales. I think that's what I call it. I'm pretending to be a fashion expert here, but yeah.
Doing well.
Yeah, there we go. So this is all online data only. So what this isn't necessarily true sellout. So it's not necessarily just relating to consumer demand. It could be equally relating to the fact that retailers are not able to restock these subcats, or they're not focusing on restocking these categories because they're not important. So 2 things could be happening here, both consumer demand and lack of restock from retailers. So that's from a data science perspective, that's kind of the background of this dashboard, where the data's from. But maybe you've got a region you'd like to look at and maybe talk about a bit more, because you are the retail expert.
Sure. First of all, this looks amazing, and I can't believe that it only took a few days for you to pull all this together.
Well, yeah, thanks. It wasn't just me. It was a big team effort. So
the whole team. Yeah, such great work. So let's start in China, as this is when where everything first kicked off, and then obviously, as this is a market that's currently starting to see recovery, this is where other regions will be looking at and try and gauge some sort of timeline to benchmark as when they can start returning to business as normal. So what we can see here is that arrivals fell drastically within the first 2 weeks of the number of confirmed cases reaching the thousands. So we saw a 54% drop within the first 2 weeks. And then this continued through to Feb, where arrivals continue to trend down, averaging at approximately 70% for the total month. Interestingly, now what we're starting to see is now factories are reopening and the economy is attempting to bounce back, that there has been an uptick. So we've seen a 96% increase in new arrivals for this week compared to the past year. If we take a look at discounting, what we're seeing is that the amount hasn't changed year on year, but if we look at the proportion, we've seen that the number of reduced products within this week alone has increased by 55%. So even though the market is starting to recover, retailers are still holding back and being cautious on reducing product too heavily, as it is still such an uncertain time. Product is getting marked down as businesses are trying to regulate their assortments, as well as encourage consumers to start shopping again online. That pretty much sums up China. And I think what we were saying before is now other regions are starting to look at that, and maybe we're going to start to see some of those patterns emerge in other regions. Do you think that this is correct in saying, Joe?
Yeah, we're looking through the other regions. What's really interesting is, China experiencing this strong trend, and watching how the other regions are actually going into the exact same trends, just with that delay, based on when COVID started to take hold in that region. So if we look at the UK, for example, up until the middle of March, new wins year on year has remained somewhat stable, not big differences. There's been some fluctuations, obviously, but that's just normal market behavior. But as soon as the UK got to around 1,000 cases of confirmed COVID, we start to see this drop that we saw in China back in February. So, a 60% drop week on week in new arrivals into the market, almost to the exact same proportion that China saw. Again, for average product discount, we see the same behavior that China's seeing, really not a massive decrease. We are seeing a slight 10% reduction actually in the average product discount for the UK, which is slightly more than we saw in China, but overall, not that big discrepancy to 2019. And yeah, I'm sounding like a broken record, but for the assortment on discount, UK is again starting to echo what we saw back in February for China, where the assortment on discount is beginning to diverge by up to 17, and this week 77% of more products are on discount this week, which is crazy. And so you can see that COVID is affecting the two metrics of new arrivals and assortment on discount massively. We looked at other regions. We can see some the hard hit regions in Europe, such as Italy and Spain. We can see Spain, again, like China, starting to go into this decline, where even greater than we saw in China, up to 80% change in new arrivals week on week. So it's really, and Spain is at the apex of its infection rate right now. So we can see how much of an impact COVID's having. Again, if we look at Italy, a really hard hit region, we can see a big divergence here, a bit smaller than Spain, but again, very significant, and a divergence on assortment discount too. What I really wanted to quickly highlight, one region that is actually doesn't fit into this kind of China model. So every region seems to be following the same behavior as China, but South Korea, as we know, reacted to the virus very differently. And actually you can see that in the data. So new wins throughout 2020 have remained above their value for 2019 quite significantly. We know Korea dealt with the coronavirus very effectively. And as a result, the market's not taken a hit. We're seeing many products entering the market. Discount is higher than last year. So maybe this is suggesting that retailers are still bringing their products on, but knowing that the retail market is a bit more volatile and a bit more sensitive. So taking no precautions would be very stupid. Taking precautions to make sure that their stuff is selling. But yeah, so that's really interesting for me as a data scientist, and as know a bit about fashion, and they're quite obvious insights. I can talk about that. But one thing I'd be really interested to hear your opinion on as a retail expert is this table. So which categories are having the most sellouts, and why you think that might be?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we can see here is scarves is the category that's experiencing the highest increase week on week. And we've actually seen that this trend is prominent in Italy as well, where scarves are up 23% year on year. And obviously there is the shortage of the face masks all around the world. And Italy, as you were saying, Joe, is one of those hard hit regions. So this can give insight that consumers are buying scarves to wear around their face in lieu of a medical mask. And similarly, in Germany, gloves are the category that's seeing the highest increase in sellouts week on week. Again, that's another item that can be worn as a protective fashion. So that's kind of some of the ways that COVID-19 is influencing product sellouts. Going back to China again, what we can see is that one of the top categories selling out this week is sweatshirts. And this, of course, fits into the overarching loungewear theme. That really has been the defining trend of the COVID-19 era, where we can see that in China, but also in Western regions. And of course, I've been wearing loungewear all week. I think I only get out of loungewear to change into my pajamas and then do it all again the next morning. However, this doesn't mean that there isn't a place for dressier apparel during this time. What's been really interesting is looking at how retailers are communicating their products. We're starting to see retailers promote getting dressed up, even if you have nowhere to go, just to benefit your mental health and to try and get back into some routine, get out of your sweatpants. And what I think is really interesting is when I was looking at this dashboard last week, we're starting to see these kinds of categories that aren't, your sweatpants and your comfy clothes start to pick up a bit of momentum. In the UK last week, when I was looking at this dashboard, pajamas was the category that had the biggest sellout year on year. However, this week it switched to lingerie, so suggesting that customers are trying to, keep it spicy in lockdown.
That's just the UK as well?
Not just the UK, yeah. Not the situation here. I'm in lockdown with my mother and sister, so...
Well, yeah. I'm not going to ask any more questions about that.
No more questions. So, of course, while loungewear is a huge trend, there is going to come a time where customers will be wanting to wear something else. So retailers who are promoting different types of apparel are going to see the benefits later on, once this trend eventually passes.
That's really interesting. Really, really interesting. And yeah, I mean...
Lingerie stats?
Sorry?
The lingerie stats are interesting.
Lingerie stats are very interesting, you know.
Always.
I'm in New York, and we're not seeing the same thing, or I've not seen that personally. So, but moving swiftly on. So yeah, that's the dashboard. Like I said, it's just, you know, it's really interesting to see just the data out there, and even at a top level, you know, some obvious insights that you might assume, you know, they're validated by the data there, which I think is really important. And like I said, we built this not really to try and tell a story, but to allow other people to maybe build their own stories and insights. So, you know, I'm a data scientist, don't know loads about fashion, but I can see what the data is telling me. But if you were to use this dashboard, you know, to write a report or do a piece of analysis, what would you say the two or some of the key takeaways would be from looking at this data?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm completely echoing what you said. Like these are assumptions that, you know, you can have looking at a market and watching it react, and then having this data to back it up, I think for any retail business is so valuable. What we can take away is definitely watching China as a key region that's recovering from the pandemic, and to kind of benchmark how you can expect your retail business to evolve in the coming months. So looking at how new arrivals, you know, start to filter back in, you know, and moving outside of that, I think discounting is another really key area. You know, not discounting too deeply in today's climate. You know, and this isn't something that we've noticed just specifically for COVID-19. Black Friday as well, we're seeing that, you know, products are still selling out regardless of having a really heavy discount that's impacting your margins. So this trend that we're seeing in the US and UK, despite more products being discounted, the depth of discount is actually lower or on par for last year. And you know, adopting this strategy during this time will give retailers the opportunity to stretch out their inventory, especially if, you know, they are still behind that curve where China is and their supply chains are still getting back on their feet. That's
really interesting. And this is, I know you wouldn't ever self-sell yourself, but I'll give you a little plug. So you actually wrote a blog piece on this, right? And I think the link will be in the comment section of this video. And it's also, there's a link to our blog on the COVID dashboard itself. And if you want to go check out the dashboard yourself, it's completely open, publicly available. You can Google edited COVID. Not something we want to be associated for the long term, but for now, it's a quick and easy way to get the link to this dashboard. And again, I think we'll post a link in the comments of this video section. But yeah, I think that's it. That's been, yeah, a real fun kind of quick run through. And yeah, I'm really happy that I'm able to show you what we've been working on. I know it's very late in Australia right now, 11:30. So
Yep. Netflix and wine time.
Yeah, Netflix and chill. So yeah, I'll let you get to bed. And yeah, thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya.